Welcome back to the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. I'm Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside Josh Fremd. We're about to get into the UFC 268 betting preview, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com. This weekend, UFC 268, a.k.a. the Trevor Whitman Show, basically, is going to be going down in New York City at Madison Square Garden. It is a card that is loaded from top to bottom with star-studded matchups. There are two title fights that have fans waiting in anticipation for months on end. One of them, basically 2 years worth of wait now at this point. You know, Josh, in the main event, we have a rematch between the Team Elevation and Onyx Labs product in Kamaru Usman taking on the challenger in one Colby Covington. Now, this is a rematch, like we say. In the first fight, Josh, that was as tough of a fight as Kamaru has
ever had.
That was all knotted up at 2-2 going into that fifth and final frame for that fight. What do you think of this matchup?
Honestly, how I am thinking of this one is it all depends on how the training has differed for Colby Covington. Because we've seen Kamaru. He's leveled up since moving from Sanford to up with Trevor Whitman and Elevation. He's just on a different level right now. Whereas when you look at Colby Covington, you would kind of think that he's taken a step back. He's regressed from American Top Team to now MMA Masters, I believe it is, down close in Miami. We don't know much about that gym. There's not a ton of big names coming from that gym. So what kind of partners does he have? What level of training does he have? And how are we going to see what type of Colby Covington comes out this fight?
I totally agree with you there, and that's an analysis that I think was just hitting the nail on the head. What do we know as far as Colby getting better? As you mentioned, Kamaru has added many more tools to the arsenal. He has just continued to get better and better on the feet now. I think that based off of the media day and just some of the interviews that Colby has done, he's kind of alluded to trying to wrestle a little bit more. But I think that is going to be an effort that is thwarted fairly easily should Kamaru stuff, especially those first couple of takedown attempts.
Yeah.
I think that this matchup, personally on my side, all gimmicks aside too, to give him his roses, Colby's a good fighter.
Colby's a great fighter. I think
tough.
he's very good at this sport, this whole fighting thing. It's just when you have two guys at this type of level, at this high level, it's going to come down to tiny, minuscule things. No mental lapses in that cage where you don't take a split second off. And you saw with the first fight, there was not a lot of time wasted. They used every second of that fight.
And it's two guys that genuinely hate each other, too.
So this isn't going to a decision. Like, I don't believe it's going to go to a decision, especially looking at the lines here. Kamaru to win by a knockout or TKO is a plus 150. I'll take that one.
Hammer down
on that one. And like even to hedge it, like a possible random Colby Covington TKO, that's a plus 750. So like this one, it didn't go to the judges the first time, and I guarantee you after they spent that some odd 23 minutes together in that cage, they've figured out a little bit about each other. So like I said, it all depends on how Colby comes into this fight.
Totally agreed. Personally, as far as my pick, I'm going with that Kamaru knockout. I do
believe that, yeah.
I think that he's just gotten so much better at this stage of the game.
And you saw after he fought Masvidal for 25 minutes how he came back and just absolutely demolished him. I don't know how anyone's ever doubted him. I don't think the guy's ever lost a single round in the UFC. Every single one of his fights from the Ultimate Fighter in the UFC has been absolute domination. And it hasn't really been exciting up until his title reign because he wasn't known as a striker. He was just a pure wrestler who held people down and submitted them. But Kamaru, if he gets through this in another dominant way, honestly, you can start putting him up there with GSP. I really believe that because he is at that level of domination.
Let him. I think if you let him have a couple more title defenses to put him completely into that,
yeah.
But he's on path. I think he's definitely on route to that. So that being said, are you're running with?
I'm running with Kamaru for sure.
Leaning on the
finish. It's not going to the judges. I'm hammering down on that plus 150 TKO KO.
There you have it, folks. It is official right there. Josh Fremd has it locked in for the finish. And what do you have it? Great minds think alike. On this one, at least. Who knows? We may have to go back and forth here in a little bit. But
I do believe in a little bit we will.
But nonetheless, in the co-main event, we have another Trevor Whitman athlete in Thug Rose Namajunas, the current women's strawweight champion. She is the first woman to lose her title and then reclaim the throne, which I think is pretty awesome. I'm a massive Rose fan. I just love everything about her.
How can you not like Thug Rose?
Yeah, 100%. And she's taken on a tough foe in the former champion in Zhang Weili in this rematch. I personally don't think that Zhang should have gotten this fight. I understand the global politics of the situation, and that's largely why she probably got the title fight. But really, if you're wanting my 2 cents, my comments from the peanut gallery,
wink, wink.
that I think that the title shot should have gone to Carla Esparza. But nonetheless, we're sitting here with Zhang Weili taking on Thug Rose Namajunas. And Josh, what do you think about this particular rematch?
This one, I kind of find it interesting because when you look at the money line, they have Rose as an underdog at a plus 100, which is kind of interesting because the way the last fight went, you would assume...
That was beautiful. That was poetic. That was brilliantly violent, the way that she knocked out Weili the last time.
But interesting, Weili has been training with none other than Triple C. So are we gonna see a wrestling Weili?
I think that it's definitely in her arsenal, and I think that she had wrestling as a strong attribute or a strong tool in her tool bag up to that point. But, I think sometimes also, as you know, sometimes fighters fall in love with the hands. You fall in love with being able to punch somebody in the face. But I also believe that Rose is a champion for a reason, Josh. Rose, in my humble opinion, is the real deal. I just think that she's one of the greatest champions that weight class has seen. Obviously, there's been very few, but her run, you could argue, outside of a fluke loss to Andrade, because she was piecing up Andrade before she just held on to that Kimura for a little bit too long and got slammed in the freak knockout. But to come back and take her throne back, beating Weili, she beat who everybody else thinks is the consensus greatest champion of that division, not once, but twice.
Don't bring up this heartbreak to me.
When she knocked out the Boogie Woman.
This is a heartbreak to me.
So for me, it's hard for me to ever go against Thug Rose.
So that's who you're going with, Thug Rose?
Oh yeah. And to be honest, like I this one is all heart too. I mean, I may
all feelings, no facts.
This one is all feelings, no facts. But I think that there's also a lot of facts behind the Rose going on to win once again.
Yeah. Well, I love Rose, and I think that I agree. She's one of the greatest that's ever been in the women's division. But I don't know. I think Weili going down, training with Triple C, and learning from one of the greats, if not the absolute great, I think she comes in as a different fighter this one. I think she goes in and she takes Rose down and just beats on her for like 2 rounds.
Did you know that 3 out of 4 title rematch fights, the fighter who won the first fight wins the second?
I didn't know that.
Statistically?
I don't care about stats. I'm talking about all feelings here, bro.
I mean, I'm just trying to bring some balance to the equation here, Josh Fremd. But, like I say, that I think that's where, we knew that we were going to butt heads at a certain point here, at a certain point. But as far as a feature on the night, obviously we would be completely remiss if we did not talk about the Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje matchup. Justin Gaethje, another Trevor Whitman athlete.
Another Trevor Whitman. This fight is... all right, so Kamaru and Colby, exciting, beyond belief, bad blood. But Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, anytime Justin Gaethje steps in the cage, it's fireworks. It's going to be something exciting. And then you get someone almost virtually identical to Gaethje in Michael Chandler. This one has fight of the night written all over it.
You know, Josh, I understand where you're coming from and that they're both explosive and they're both highlight machines, but I feel like we've seen Michael Chandler's biggest weakness be the leg kicks.
Yes.
Throughout the course of his career. Especially go back and revisit, like the Brent Primus fight especially. You saw the way that that's affected him in some of his UFC fights already. Who is one of the most vicious, violent, nasty, leg-kicking SOBs ever in the history of the UFC?
What is Justin Gaethje?
Exactly. So for those sorts of reasons and Chandler's propensity to walk forward, I think that works out extremely well for Justin Gaethje. Also, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's any sort of direct correlation out there, but who used to be one of the main wrestling training partners and just guys that you saw forever just scramble for ages down in Florida with Kamaru? Michael Chandler.
Michael Chandler.
Now, who is one of the primary training partners and guys out there on the mat?
I see
with
what you're saying here. A little mental warfare.
So, obviously, not all things are directly translatable, but what sort of help in the wrestling room has Kamaru Usman been able to give Justin Gaethje, and in terms of offering maybe any sort of intel or tendencies along those lines? What might be the case there, Josh Fremd?
That's a cliffhanger. I'm just going to let that one boil for a little bit.
Yeah?
That's a good one. All right. But moving forward, Justin, Curtsy, what do you have for your other feature fight here?
So, there's I don't know if it's a prop. There's probably not a prop out there, but I think there should be. But there needs to be an over-under on how fat Gian Vellante is going to show up this weekend.
What's the number set at?
I would say that you got to set the over-under at 244.5.
I'm going to go over.
You're going to go over? Okay,
over.
Well, the average as far as his last two fights was 245, so we'll see. One of them, mind you, folks, his heyday was at 205. In one of his last two fights, he stepped on the scales at 255. I mean, he's a lovable meatball. He's a guy who's been a fan favorite for a long time. Just that complete, funny goofball sort of dude who's always been in the background of the Weidman videos and the Matt Serra stuff for just years and years. But, like I say, he's 3 losses in a row, and he's very well fighting for his job at this point.
Oh, absolutely fighting for his job. And the guy that he has standing across from him, it's going to be very interesting how this one plays out.
Oh, yeah. You're going to see a couple of big boys going at it.
A couple rumbling, tumbling, stumbling big boys.
Oh, yeah. Who do you have for your feature?
For mine, so I wanted to go and pick the Colorado boys that we got teammates going out, but I didn't want to be biased, so I wanted to put out something that this one also has a chance to be fight of the night. Shane Burgos and Billy Quarantillo.
Ooh, I'm surprised that you went with that one. I thought that you were going to go with another one.
I know which ones you were thinking, and that's the thing about this. Like, this card is absolutely stacked. It's so hard to pick which one I want to talk about, because I could sit here and BS with you for hours about these fights coming up this week. But this one, it hit me because I'm a huge Shane Burgos fan. Like, that dude goes out there and scraps every single time. 100%. And Billy Quarantillo is the same type of guy. So this one, if not Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, I think this one could be possibly a fight of the night for sure.
Agreed. It's fireworks all over that matchup, and I'm not going to deny that one for me right there. I thought that you were going to go with Poatan. I thought that you were going to go with Alex Pereira making his UFC debut.
We got to put his name out there. We got to highlight him for sure, because when you have another
scary.
You have another legend of glory kickboxing, or the type of fights that this guy has been a part. He is basically Israel Adesanya just finally getting into the UFC like Adesanya did when he got into the UFC. So yeah, Poatan making his UFC debut. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great for the sport. I feel very bad for his opponent. Much love. I hope you've made peace with God, and I hope you're ready.
How fast do you think he gets tracked to a title shot?
Oh, if
3 fights?
if they set it up matchmaking wise the same way they did with Adesanya, I believe very shortly. It's just one thing that we have to
Under
see.
5 fights?
I'd say over 5. No, under, because how long is he going to hold the title? I'd say it'd have to be under 5 because you want to see that rematch marketing wise. That's going to sell. But like, what is Pereira's wrestling like? That's a great question.
It is, but Josh, when you have a left hand that you don't even have to have your feet planted, that is just like a Thanos fist sending you into the oblivion, that's a scary thing to have to deal with. And just on the way out here, folks, we want to give a shout out to, as Josh alluded to, a couple of our other Colorado boys out there in Jordan Williams and the gamer of all gamers in our boy and extremely good friend of the show, the Hanyak Dustin Jacoby, as he steps in on just days' notice to face John Allen.
On days' notice. 5 days' notice to be exact. Guy's a true gangster. I'm excited for him. Get to go out and rock the Big Apple. And Jordan Williams going out. Hey, you guys are going to have a great weekend. Let's go.
Hit us up on social media. Let us know what you think of our picks. You could also reach us on the Go Fast Energy Drink hotline and text line at 303-831-1340. I'm Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside Josh Frim. This is the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio.
Yeah, little thick bitch, fine little mamacita. Always coolin' by the pool, drinking margaritas. Yeah, it's pippin' over here and we ain't trippin' over pesos. I know it's good now, but luego, I can never show no love to a faker.